Good morning. I'm Caitlin with Wiregrass Daily News, and I'm here with Miss Ashley Davis, who
Good
is running
morning.
for District 5 School Board.
Good morning. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Kaylin.
Thank you for coming. So, Ashley, what is your vision for Dothan City Schools in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I have a vision for Dothan City Schools, but ultimately it's going to be left up to the voters. I see in 5 to 7 years Dothan City Schools being the premier education choice in the Wiregrass. We have really good bones and we have fantastic staff, fantastic teachers, and we have the potential of being the number one school in the state. I believe that with my whole heart. We have the potential to be the number one choice for teachers and administrators that are looking for employment in the area. But this is ultimately just going to reside on what the voters do on August 5th. We are kind of at a crossroads with our system. And we have got to choose people to sit on the board that operate with integrity, operate with transparency, and put the best interests of teachers and students number one above all else in every single decision that they make.
How will you ensure that all students receive a high quality education regardless of background?
Well, public school, it's for everybody, absolutely everybody. And so the challenge that we're faced with, and really all school systems are faced with, is making sure that the resources that we have go to where they need to be, back to the schools and back to the classrooms. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with IEPs, but a lot of children have IEPs or a 504 plan, which are individualized learning plans for them that we're required by law to follow. And teachers and parents can collaborate and write the very best plan for every single student. But unless we have the employees in place and the resources in place to follow those plans, it's just a piece of paper. And right now, what we're challenged with in Dothan City Schools is that we have a lot of resources that are not going into the schools. They're going to a central office that's overstaffed by at least half. Um, we have teacher units. So we have certified teachers that are in central office doing non teacher jobs, but getting paid our teacher unit salaries. We have got to get those employees back in the schools and we've got to get that money back into the school so we can support children.
Well, what do you believe are the most important issues facing Dothan City Schools?
So without a question, our number one issue and number two issue are teacher retention and retaining our students. We are hemorrhaging teachers. We have watched every single year since my children, I have 4 children that are all enrolled in Dothan City Schools. And since we've been here, every single year, we have watched good teacher after good teacher fleeing our system. And it is heartbreaking and it is frustrating. And it's unsustainable. It is just unsustainable. And when you talk to these teachers, they're not leaving to go make more money, although all teachers deserve more money everywhere. I mean, there's no question about that. But our teachers are leaving to take lower paying jobs. So we have an issue that we are really going to have to examine. They're leaving to go to jobs where they feel safe, where they feel respected, where they feel appreciated, and they feel like they're being provided the support and the resources that they need to teach. So they're just leaving for a better quality of professional life, and we have got to change that. That's going to start with the superintendent. We have to have a good person in place that are leading our teachers and leading our school system with kindness, with empathy, that really work to show our teachers that they're valued and supported and backed up in the decisions that they're making in the classroom.
What steps will you take to ensure that all students have an equal opportunity to educational opportunities?
Well, again, it goes back to resources. We've got to make sure that the money that we have is going to the classrooms. The amount of waste that is happening that's being spent by the board and being spent by central office it's obscene. It's offensive. We have the resources to greatly improve our student quality of life and our student quality of learning here. We just have to make sure that it's getting to the classrooms.
How do you plan to support students who are at risk or face challenges such as learning disabilities, poverty, or language barriers?
Like we talked about IEPs and resources, but another crucial component of that, as far as at risk students go, or students with behavioral issues. I don't know if you're familiar with Pass Academy, but Dothan City Schools has an alternative school called Pass Academy. And when there are discipline issues in the classroom, those children can still be in school and still receive instruction and go to a school where they can get connection and get specialized instruction until they're ready to return to the classroom. Well, the issue that we're having is that Pass Academy used to be a large school, and it had multiple classrooms, lots of teachers, certified teachers that were experts in connecting with these kids. And it was a safety net for them. So they could go there, still learning. We're not going to miss any instruction, get, the specialized instruction that they need till they're ready to go back to the classroom. Well, right now we have chipped away funding at Pass Academy to where we have a capacity of maybe, I think it's around 20 right now, and there are only 3 employees there. And those children do an online curriculum, and the employees that are there do a fantastic job. But if you can talk to the students, and I'm in the schools a lot, so I hear the students talk. They'll talk about, "Oh, Pass Academy's full," so they know if they get in trouble, they're just getting sent home. They're not getting sent to Pass Academy. They're just gonna go home to where no instruction is being had. Some of them aren't going home to the greatest environment, so we're basically turning them out to the street. We have got to have that safety net in place to catch those kids so we don't lose them and we can pull them back in. And we also need that as a resource for teachers and administrators. Administrators' hands are tied. They don't want to send these children home either. Believe it or not, they may seem a little stern, these principals really care about these kids. And so not having a place to send them is a major issue. And we have got to return funding to Pass Academy so we catch these kids.
How will you promote diversity and inclusion within the school system?
I think that a lot of our schools do a great job with this already. Obviously, rules need to be applied equitably across the board. But I think another component of that is that we need staff, we need teacher staff, we need administrators that look like and come from the same neighborhoods as our student bodies in these schools. For the most part, I think that we do a good job with that. There are some areas of improvement, though, and we need to be honest and look at it and say, how did we get in this situation? This teacher staff does not look like the student body. And I think it's important for kids to see people that come from their neighborhood, that look like them, that they go to church with, in these positions of authority, so they can learn. The other component of that is, and I mentioned this briefly, but applying the code of conduct equitably and fairly. It does not matter who your daddy is or who your papa plays golf with. The rules apply to everybody, and they need to be applied fairly. Teachers do a fantastic job of this. I see it. I'm in the schools. They meet the children where they are, no matter who they are, and they pour into them and lift them up. But where I have seen a problem is when it gets to the administrative level, and beyond, that maybe all the rules aren't being applied fairly. So we really need to look at that, and we need a superintendent in place that holds those administrators accountable to apply the code of conduct across the board equally to everyone.
How do you plan to improve student achievement, especially in areas where performance may be lagging?
So, and this is something that we're dealing with now. The state testing scores just came out, I think, last week, and we did drop a little bit that the standards changed. And this is not something that the board has direct control over. So, what the board can do to support this is make sure that we have the right superintendent in place who is hiring the right directors, hiring the right administrators so they can hire the right teachers so that we can really make growth in this area. And like I mentioned before, we're hemorrhaging teachers. We've got to retain our skilled, professional, tenured teachers that really know how to connect with children and how to help them succeed.
What strategies will you implement to ensure that students are adequately prepared for secondary education or the workforce?
So this is something that I have a minimal number of complaints about. We do a great job at this. Dothan High has so many resources, no matter if you're wanting to go into a trade or if you're wanting to go on to college, we have got you set up for that. The Dothan Technology Center, oh my gosh, unbelievable. You can leave high school with a cosmetology degree. You can leave high school with a pharmacy tech license. You can leave high school with auto mechanic skills. My son is in the pre-engineering program at Dothan Tech, and it is unbelievable. They have the opportunity to work with all the software that engineers use to design things. And where else are you going to get that experience and for free? It's very cool. The other thing we have is unlimited dual enrollment opportunities. If there's a college that offers dual enrollment, our counselors there can get you enrolled in them. And some of them have grants where you don't even have to pay for that. So you can leave college with some people do, or leave high school with an associate's degree. And most of it can be paid for. And, that is so cool. Not to mention the number of AP classes that we offer. There's so many options there. The only thing I would say that we could do better is making sure that every student knows everything that's available to them there. And that's difficult because there is so much. So, it's kind of is that really a complaint that we have so much that it's hard to know what all the opportunities are? But we do a great job with that. So, yay, Dothan High. Very good.
How will you support and monitor academic performance, and what will you do if performance falls short?
Yeah, and again, this is kind of what I just answered. I don't know that the board has that much control over it, over them making sure we have the right superintendent in place. And I'll add this just as an extra, since I did kind of just talk about it. The board right now is about to hire a new superintendent. So, with a contract, it's probably going to be 3 or 4 years. And we don't know if this board is still going to be here. So this board might even be the people that are going to be working with the superintendent. This is something that should have been pushed to the next board to hire. Um, it's going to be a costly issue if they don't hire the right person that the next board wants to work with to carry us forward.
How do you plan to support teachers in the classroom?
So personally, I do this every day. I have 4 children in the schools, and if there is a need, if I see the need, or if a teacher asks for something, I want to be the first person to help. Teachers are superheroes. They are amazing, but we just have to make sure that they have the resources that they need to do their job. Like I said, one of the reasons that they're leaving, it's not for more money, but it's to go where they feel safe, where they feel supported, where they feel valued, and they're provided what they need. So we have to get a superintendent in place that makes sure that our teachers are supported in all of those ways, and then they get out of their way. So I think we all know that teacher has touched all of our lives. There's no question of that. It's in their nature. Let them do what they do. Give them what they need. Communicate with them so we know what they need, not what you think they need, but what they tell you that they need, and then get out of their way and let them teach, because that's what they do.
How will you advocate for additional funding or resources for Dothan City Schools, especially in the face of financial challenges?
Yeah. So there's a lot that we can improve on ourselves to make sure we're not wasting. That's something that I've followed very closely for the past 4 years. And there is a significant amount of waste toward contracts that benefit somebody's family, contracts that benefit somebody's friend, and that are not contracts that are necessarily in the best interest of our students and teachers. So we have got to clean that up. Past cleaning that up, we have lost the trust of Dothan taxpayers, and we've lost the trust of the city commission and the mayor. I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. I would not have given this last board a dime of extra taxpayer money. But going forward, we are going to have to repair and rebuild those relationships, because we have some things that we need money for that we simply will not be able to afford. We have a city that's spending over $200 million on a downtown renovation, which is beautiful and I love it. But here we are over at the schools and we're suffering, and we are going to need help.
What are your plans for ensuring the safety and well-being for students and teachers within the school?
Right now we're going through several renovations in the elementary schools where they're adding secured vestibules when you come in, and that's long overdue. I don't know if you've ever been to central office, but it's like Fort Knox over there. You can get into the first little room and that's it. And meanwhile, we've had elementary schools that once you get past that door, you have access to the whole school. So we're putting it into that and they're building the secured vestibules. And again, this is a resource question. We have to make sure that we are spending our resources wisely on programs and things that actually do ensure the safety of our children. Um, the board bought recently, a few months ago, a license plate reading system. What? That's not something that's gonna directly protect our kids. We have to put the resources where they matter, and we have to follow procedures in every school the same way every time.
How do you plan to address bullying and create a positive school climate?
Yeah, so the board obviously can't interfere legally with day-to-day operations, but this is just a symptom of changing the culture of our school system, and that is a top-down process. So we've got to get a superintendent in place that hires the proper people, that treat our teachers first with respect, and there's no bullying there, which you would think that's not something you would even have to say out loud, but unfortunately it is. And so we're going to have to change the whole culture and climate of the system where kindness and empathy and listening and communication are our top priorities. And I think it's going to trickle down. We do have some bullying issues, and I know that we have individual pockets of it. So again, this is a issue of applying the code of conduct, of having good communication with parents. And when parents say, "Hey, my child has an issue," you have to meet with them and discuss them if you're an employee of this school system and take it seriously.
How do you plan to engage parents and the local community in the educational process?
So this is easier done in elementary school, elementary parents are more apt to be involved than they are in the upper grades. But I think this is something that we do a good job at least at all of those schools that my children have attended. So we've been at Highlands, Carver, Math and Science, Carver 9, and the high school. And there have been opportunities all along the way to be involved. I think the challenge is that, parents are trying to get by and survive. So we can't put that burden back on them. We need to meet them where they are. However, they're doing life. We have to make our schedules convenient to them. So that may mean when we have an open house, maybe we have two different times where we have an open house. We have to be willing to meet with them on Zoom or FaceTime or do phone calls because parents are working. They're just trying to get by. They're trying to put food on the table and pay the bills. So there are plenty of opportunities. And if you can be involved, that's fantastic. And if not, then just stay connected with your teacher. And there's plenty of opportunities to do that. We just have to make sure that it's convenient to the parents.
What is your plan for improving services and support for students with special needs?
So, our teachers are so well intentioned and they will jump through flaming hula hoops to serve our children. But if we don't provide them what they need, it is simply impossible. If we don't have the employees there, if we don't have the resources available to them, they are doing the best they can. So, we have got to get money back into the classrooms, back into personnel. We have got to get people out of central office and into the schools where we need them.
What is your plan to address the condition of school facilities, including maintenance and upgrades?
So, as I talked about, this is going to have to be a issue that we involve the city in. This is not something that Dothan City Schools can afford on their own. We need a superintendent that gets good, qualified people in place in the building maintenance department that understand construction, that understand the cost of construction. And we have got to work with the city to get a plan. We have Dothan High is over 100 years old. So it's had some love along the way, but we're gonna have to put some money into these facilities to maintain them. A lot of them are old and they're falling apart, and this is just gonna be a situation where the city is gonna be involved. And We need some new buildings. We need some new buildings. I'm a proponent of a second middle school. Maybe that's a magnet middle school, or maybe it's just an additional middle school. But these are not things that the system can do on their own. We're going to have to get help from the city.
How do you plan to ensure that schools have access to technology and tools needed to enhance learning?
So technology is an integral part of our society now, and it is an integral part of learning, and it's not something that you can get around. So we're going to have to make sure that kids are learning how to use it and learning how to use it responsibly and using critical thinking skills while they're using it to determine what might be AI and what might not. But the most important thing that we have to do with technology is we have to have a technology director that has a background in education and understands how to integrate technology, be it software or hardware, into our learning plans.
How will you ensure transparency in the decision-making process of the Board of Education?
This is a big issue of mine. If you follow the board closely and you go to the meetings, you're going to come out with more questions than answers when you leave a meeting. Our board policy allows our board to operate on something called a consent agenda. And a consent agenda, and it's in Robert's Rules of Order, which is what they use to conduct their meetings. It's basically like a combo meal. If you were going to McDonald's and you'd say, I want a number 4, but you have no idea what's in the number 4, but everybody voted for the number 4. And so the number 4 is what you're getting. So the consent agenda is the same. They vote to pass the consent agenda, and they don't read out loud any of the contracts that they are voting on, any of the bids, any of the expenditures, curriculum are not said out loud at the meeting. You can look on the agenda and it'll have a list, usually a vague description of whatever it is. They all say aye, consent agenda is passed, and no light is shed on what just happened. Sometimes those contracts will end up online where you can look at them later in the minutes, and sometimes they don't. So we have got to do away with the consent agenda. There has got to be an opportunity for discussion at every meeting on every contract, on every expenditure that the board votes on. We have got to shine the light in the dark places, and that consent agenda is a dark place. The other thing we have to do is we operate on taxpayer dollars. The taxpayers deserve to know where the money is going. We have right now check registers online for all of the money that goes out of Dothan City Schools, but you don't know where it's going. It's listed in a category. So we have to have these check registers online, free, available to the public, with the payee names of where the money is going. This is taxpayer dollars, and we deserve to know where our money is being spent and who's receiving it.
What steps will you take to ensure that the board is accountable to the public and that its actions align with the best interest of students and the community?
This is going to be a situation where we just have to call it out. Like I said, transparency is just a non-negotiable. We have got to implement those changes to the meetings. We have got to implement the changes to the check registers being available. And when we see a conflict of interest between a board member and a contract that they are not disclosing to the public, somebody else has to point it out. We cannot let this continue. This is a major problem that we're dealing with. And this is why we have money that is leaving our system that is not benefiting our students. And we just have to change that. This is a non-negotiable. There's no way around it. We have to do better.
How do you plan to handle conflicts of interest or disagreements within the board? And how will you maintain professionalism and focus on student success?
Personally, if I had a conflict of interest with a contract, I would publicly disclose it. That's what the law requires. And I just would hold my fellow board members accountable in the most respectful and professional way possible. But we have to do it because it's not respectable to our children or to our teachers if we continue to let this go on.
What role do you see for technology in enhancing education in Dothan City Schools?
Technology is crucial. And there are so many good learning softwares out there right now. There's one in particular that I know Carver Math and Science uses that my children love. How weird is that? My children love a particular curriculum. but it is progress-based, and so it meets the children where they are. This is obviously not what we want to take the place of a face-to-face instruction with a teacher. That's invaluable, but we need to have the teacher input in this technology to let them tell the people that are purchasing the technology what actually works for them and what actually works for students, and we have a disconnect there. So
How will you ensure that students have access to modern technology and digital learning tools?
this is just a matter of getting the right technology director in place that has an education background and making sure that they have the resources allocated in the best way possible so that they can purchase what our students need.
Why are you running for District 5 school board member, and what personal or professional experiences have prepared you for this role?
So I have 4 children in Dothan City Schools, and being involved in the unraveling of why aren't resources going where they need to go, why aren't administrators communicating with parents, has become a big part of my family's life. My kids like to go to the school board meetings with me. Like many families in Dothan City Schools, we have been on the edge of, should we leave? Should we go to another system? Should we go to private school? And every time something happens to get us to that point again, my youngest son says, "No, we can't leave. That will look like we've quit, and we can't leave our friends behind." So we are here for all families in this school system. I can't not run. I know too much to not to put what I have learned to good use in this system. I can't not do it. So campaigning is not the most fun. If there were another way to get this job, I would love to do that. This is not self-promotion is not the most comfortable spot to be in. But I know for sure that I am the best person for this seat. My only intention is for Dothan City Schools to get better for my kids, for everyone's kids, and to improve working conditions for teachers. That is my only intention. If someone else were to enter the race and I thought they would do a better job than me, oh, please, please do that. But at this point, I'm still in the race. I know for certain that I am the best person for this job, and that's why I'm running. I can't not. So,
How will your leadership style and approach contribute to the overall success of Dothan City Schools?
so leadership, I've heard a lot of other candidates for commission and for school board talk about this being a leadership position. I don't see it that way. I see it as an advocacy position, as a collaborative position, as being a member of a team. So we work together to improve the system. I'm not going to coin myself a leader or the best leader. That's for the people who I serve to make that decision. Another thing that I've heard a lot is servant leadership. That's a popular phrase that a lot of people are using right now. And I would just say, make sure that if someone is calling themselves a servant leader, they have done that servant part already. I've done the servant part. It is a huge part of our lives. Dothan City Schools is involved in some part of my family's life every day. It is woven into the fabric of my family. We love the school system. We love the potential of this school system. I believe in the families and I believe in the teachers. And so that's who I'm working for. And that's why I want to be your next school board member for District 5.